Good morning. It's supposed to be cold all week, and so I figured this would be a perfect week to do a bunch of bone broth, chicken stock, you know, that kind of a thing. So whenever we're done like roasting a whole chicken, I take the carcass of whatever we hadn't eaten off of. Sometimes it's the wings, sometimes it's that little piece of meat on the back, whatever it be, and I just freeze them. I also do the same if we've like parted out a chicken. So I have some that are not cooked either. I'm just gonna go ahead, fill everything up and put it in here and just cook it. And I also have, I know this might disgust a few people, but I also have a bunch of chicken feet. Chicken feet is where you get a lot of that collagen and that gelling type of thing whenever you're wanting like a nice thick like stock or broth. So when you do, if you're just wanting like a stock and a broth, you don't have to boil it for super long. But if you're going more for like the bone broth style, you're gonna want to simmer this thing for a good 24 hours, if not longer. So I will go ahead, fill this thing up with chicken bones, chicken feet, some veggies such as onions, celery, carrots, some salt, a little bit of vinegar. Vinegar helps pull the nutrients out of the bones. Now these are all chickens we've raised, so we know exactly what's gone into them, and we feel completely fine pulling all those nutrients out of the bones. So, okay, my pot is full. But I need to add a lot of water because I want most of this completely underwater. And yes, the chicken feet look disgusting. But I keep telling myself they're actually good. The awesome thing about when you're doing like broth and, you know, stock, you don't have to cut your vegetables up really small. In fact, some people don't even cut them up at all. I'm gonna just probably take my onions and just like at least cut them in half. You don't even have to get rid of this stuff. I probably will because this is kind of where the dirt goes and I don't really want dirt in it. But you don't even have to like peel off the layers or anything. So yes, organic is the best, but I went to the grocery store yesterday and the organic option in our little local grocery store is pretty much non-existent. And so I figured, you know what? I still feel like it's better to make this stuff with what we have than not make it at all. So sometimes you have to make that decision. What is more important for you, to make it, even if it's not the highest quality, or not make it at all? I choose to go ahead and make it, even if it's not the highest quality. Okay, so I ended up taking a phone call and cut up the vegetables while I was on the phone, but I'll show you here. Just roughly cut up the carrots, roughly cut up the celery. I did throw a little bit of apple cider vinegar in it, have a little bit of garlic in there. Later on, when I pull all the bones out, I'll probably add a little bit of salt, but I may try to take a big spoon and kind of squish it down a little. And my crazy burner, it was like turned down on low and it was still overflowing, so my burner runs it really hot if I'm not careful, so I'll have to watch that and just slightly turn it on again. And I'm just gonna let this simmer for probably several days, take it off at night, put it back on again, and yeah, we'll see how it turns out. It is day 2 of my broth simmering. I ended up needing to move it to a different burner because I want it to simmer and my other burner is having issues. So it was either boiling like crazy or doing nothing. So it's gonna be a little bit hard, but let me see if I can bring it over here and you can see what it looks like. So you can see quite a bit of the bones and the skin starting to come apart. Vegetables in here. Yeah, there's some feet sticking out, which is just kind of really disgusting when you stir it up. Good morning. It is Friday morning and I am going to try to dig out everything but the juice in here, essentially. The bones, the meat, the vegetables. And I'm not entirely sure how I'm gonna do this because this is the largest pot that I own. So I got some cheesecloth on top of a gallon jar, or on a gallon jug, I mean. And I will probably just hand scoop it for a little while till it gets down far enough I can physically pick it up. And then I'm gonna dump everything into here. Okay, I bought this at an antique store thinking I could use it to dip in and get all the cream out. However, this is too big. So this is gonna be my scooper for today. And let's see how this works with the cheesecloth. I have to find a rubber band. Okay, I didn't like the cheesecloth because I felt like it was going to keep so much of the good gel and it was hard to hold on to. So I'm just gonna put a strainer on here, and then that way I don't even think I have to heat this up. I'm gonna turn this back off, and we'll see how this goes. Okay, this is what's called learning as you go. Found an old ice cream bucket and my strainer fits much better into that. So let's try it this way. Okay, it's hard to see, but when this stuff is cool, it's not like a full gel, but there is definitely a lot of gelatin happening, which is really good because then you know you've actually gotten like the bone broth and the collagen pulled out of the bones, which is exactly what I wanted. Okay, I found some glass jars and started filling them up. And then I had to get my bigger roaster because my other one is already full of junk. This is getting low enough now. I think I can just do this. There is a lot of meat in here, so I'm definitely going to try to pick out and save quite a bit of this meat. And yeah, I'm gonna get my arm workout today. Here's a really nice big chunk of meat. Pull that bone out and I'll save that meat. I'm always kind of surprised at how bland the meat actually tastes when you're done with it. I think it's because it literally cooks everything out of it. But it works great if I can it up with the broth, because then it just turns into soup and it's fine because it's in flavorful, yummy broth. Okay, it's hard to see the meat versus the bones in here because it looks like a lot of meat. Here's a pretty decent chunk, but there's a bone stuck right in the middle of it. So I'm just kind of trying to go through and pick out the bigger pieces of meat. They go in here, the junk goes in here. And then this is, I got almost 2 gallons worth of broth out of it. I don't think I'm going to simmer this down at all. I ended up talking to my mom and she does things just slightly different. She normally lets the meat with the bones cook for 12 hours and then picks all the bones out and puts the meat and the vegetables in and cooks for another 12 to 24 hours. Where I just threw everything together and just cooked it for 24 hours. A little bit longer than that actually, more like 36. So I don't think I'm gonna simmer this again. I'm not feeling the best today, so I may put this in the fridge with the meat and maybe can it up tomorrow. I'll see if my energy level kind of keeps coming back as the day goes on, but I'm gonna try to work through this and get a lot of this picked through, and then I'm thinking the cats are going to eat very, very good for the next few days because I don't think I'm going to go through here and pick out every little tiny piece of meat because there's just so much in here. And it's hard to figure out what is meat and what is bones. It is now Monday. I did not can up my broth. I wasn't feeling very good over the weekend. I ended up just throwing it in the refrigerator, and now I'm going to can it up. I brought out my big All-American pressure canner. I found about 18 pint-sized jars. I'm just rinsing these out. Because my broth is cold, I'm not going to leave hot water in my jars. The rule of thumb is if you're putting hot things in your jars, you need to soak it with hot water so the glass is warmed up or they'll shatter. If you're just putting cold things in, it doesn't matter, because cold on cold, you're not going to shatter your glass. So, first step I'm going to do is just rinse all my jars. And I have my nice little funnel, and I'm going to fill them up, and I'm going to can them. I'll have to double check, make sure how long I'm supposed to can it and at what weight as well. Okay, I have meat in this one, and I thought if I left it come to room temperature it wouldn't be quite so jelly, but it is still quite jelly. I don't think I'm going to have enough meat to fill all 18 with meat, so I'm just going to put a little bit of meat until I kind of run out of the meat, and then I'll just make sure that I put the meat on the bottom layer and just the broth on the top or something like that, so I can label which one has meat and which one doesn't. It should be see enough through by the time I'm done. So I'm just going to go ahead, just kind of plop just a little bit of meat in several of these jars. I'm going to have to figure out a system here. Do that. I know some people, say you need to boil your cans and your canning lids and all of that before you start to can. In my opinion, those are just kind of unnecessary, but if it makes you feel better, then do it. But pressure canner gets incredibly hot. It's going to sanitize everything for you. And I've never found heating up the rubber on the canning jars helps with a better seal rate either. Everything seals up pretty much the same. Okay, so I have quite a bit of meat. I think I'm going to get meat in every single jar. Okay, so for my big canner over here, you're supposed to add 2 to 3 inches of water on the bottom, which is about 3 quarts of water because it's fairly large. I do not remember how many pint size fits in there, and I have, quite a bit of broth left. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill my canner and see how much more room I have left. If I am completely out of room, I will just freeze the rest of this stock. If I still have room for 2-3 more jars, then I'll go ahead and just pack my canner full. So I have my flats, which hopefully I don't run out of. If I do, then I'll definitely be freezing the rest. A whole bag of rings, and I'm just going to take a paper towel, just clean the top of my jars because I got a little sloppy as I was filling them. Just going to go ahead and I'm not gonna like crank it on. One tip that I've learned is you do it until it turns it tight itself. I'm not holding the jar tight. You need a little bit of room for expansion and room for it to be able to seal, and if you really crank it on there, it eliminates a lot of that room. When you're pressure canning, there's a lot of expansion going on. So this gives it room. I'm going to go ahead and just start stacking them, seeing how much room I have left. One thing I forgot to do is I forgot to add a little bit of vinegar to my canner. We have really hard water And if you don't add a little bit of vinegar, sometimes your jars become slightly discolored because of the hard water buildup. Adding just a splash of vinegar can help eliminate that. I don't have distilled vinegar, I only have the apple cider vinegar, but you use what you got. Because I got a little messy filling them. They're a little messy on the outside. I'm just going to clean them up a little before I stick them in there. Okay, I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be able to fit one more on the bottom, but I cannot get it to fit. It could be because I'm not quite using all the same brand of jar, and one might be slightly bigger or more square. And I can't get it to fit, so that's okay. Okay, I think I have 20 in here altogether. I think that's how it is, and now it is time to put this lid on. And you try to keep the gaps even between all of these. That still takes a little bit of getting used to. Not super good at making sure the spacing is completely level everywhere yet. Yeah, it's quite a bit further down here. Bring this down. And I like to crank it on pretty tight. Yes, this thing is built like a tank. So it is going to take quite a while for it to even get up to temperature before I put the weight on it. So I am now going to go look in my book and find out how long I am supposed to can it for. I have about this much left, and I'm just going to stick it in this guy and throw them in the freezer. Okay, your canner will come with a book like this, and it will tell you how to process things. And so to do the meat broth, I'm doing pints. I'm going to process it for a minimum of 20 minutes. Technically, I was supposed to bring the broth back up to a boil and pack it hot. Kind of missed that step. So I don't think it's going to be much of an issue because it's going to come to a boil. However, I may end up processing it a little longer than 20 minutes just to be on the safe side. So once I get a nice steady stream out of this guy, I will put my weight on. Because we live such high elevation, everything gets processed at 15 pounds. And we'll time it. It's going to be right about the time that I have a business Zoom meeting, so I'm going to be going back and forth constantly monitoring my canner because this burner does not regulate very well, but that's the only burner I can use. So time to grab some lunch and watch for my steam. Okay, so this finally came up to temperature, and then you can see my little weight guy right here. Let's see if I can bring it a little closer. Right here. When this is off, the steam just shoots out of there, and you want it to shoot out of there for about 10 minutes, and then put your weight on. There's a 10, a 5, and a 15, and I always do a 15, and leave him on. You can kind of watch this gauge, and it'll kind of come up there, and then this weight will kind of start to jiggle and kind of lift up and down, and that's when you actually start your timing for your processing. So I'm going to process it for at least 20 minutes, but it's going to take at least another 10 minutes or so till it builds up that pressure and that temperature, and then I'll go. So pressure canning doesn't necessarily go faster than water bath. It's just more intense. Okay, see if you can hear it starting to kind of jiggle. There we go. That's what I'm waiting for. So now I need to time it for 20 minutes. We're at 1:45, 20 minutes. I'm also going to watch this pressure gauge quite a bit. Just kind of helps me. Okay, it has been a little bit beyond 20 minutes and my burner is starting to act goofier and goofier. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn it off. And now I'm not going to take this lid off until this gauge right here is all the way down to 0. And then I will slowly take the lid off and put my cans on the shelf to cool down, and they should all seal. Yeah, it definitely needs to cool down for a while. There's a lot of steam in there. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and take the weight off. It is not completely at 0, but it's close enough. I'm gonna go ahead and take the weight off, allow the rest of that pressure to kind of come off, and slowly open the lid. And then I'm gonna take my jars and put them right back there on that shelf. I think I'm going to let that hiss until the gauge is actually down to 0 before I take off the lid. Okay, I just let it sit for a little while longer, so now I'm ready to take the lid off and start pulling them out. Hopefully nothing broke. Found it. I don't know if you can hear them through over the noise of the dishwasher and the kids, but you can hear them popping. It's sealing already. Get this last guy on here somewhere. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Thought I did more than 18, but it's looking like 18 of them. Nothing cracked, nothing broke. Now I'll just finish letting that canner completely cool down, pour the water out, box it away for another time. So this is the chicken bone broth. Bone broth is really, really good for you health-wise. Like I was telling my husband, I'll obviously use these as a soup base, but also if you have a stomach bug or the flu, or you're just struggling to eat something and keep something down, bone broth is something that's really good for you. It has a lot of nutritional value in it, a lot of vitamins, and just kind of helps keep you going and helps your body heal. So I'm very, very happy with the amount that I've got here, and we'll use it for cooking and medicine, so to speak.